Hey guys, it's Chris at Unior. Let's talk about frame prep. You know, threading bottom brackets, facing bottom brackets and head tubes and things like that. Unior has a new line of frame prep tools. It's a modular system, and what you see here in front of you is everything you'll need to chase bottom bracket threads, face a bottom bracket shell, and ream and face a head tube. There's some shared components, particularly the handles. I'm going to show you how it all works on my little grocery getter. We'll go through all three steps, so this will be a bit longer of a video. And if you look closely, you'll notice that I've already done all of this to the frame. I'm going to do it again. I wanted to kind of just do a dry run because these tools are new to me, and yeah. Let's go. We'll start with chasing the bottom bracket threads, because the bottom bracket facer kind of relies on having clean threads. So to do the thread chasing, we'll obviously need these taps, and we'll need two handles from the system, and that is it. So let me get the phone mounted in my little tripod thing, and we'll get cracking. Thanks. Alright, so the way this system works is we have tap holders and like basically what we call a chassis. What you're seeing here is actually three parts. We have the holder, which has the keyed guide for the tap, and then this end is kind of like the chassis that they both more or less bolt onto. That chassis works to keep the two taps in line with each other. Then your handles mount into the end of that. If you look closely at the end of the tap, you'll see an R and you'll see an L. That does not refer to the side of the bike. That more actually refers to the handedness of the thread. So when you see the R there, since this is a BSA threaded bottom bracket and these are BSA taps, that R means it's a right hand thread, which means it's actually for the left side of the bike, the non-drive side of the bike. So we have the handle on one side. Let me get the second handle, we'll attach it to this. And we basically put it through, mate the two halves, and start threading them in. As I said, I've already done this process to this bike, so obviously they're going in pretty cleanly. We're just going to go until they bottom out. I'm just chasing. I'm not interested in cutting new threads right now. So they're in, and then we back them out. Obviously, if you've got damaged threads that you're trying to clean, or if you're cutting new threads, you'll want to use some cutting oil. And once you get done, you want to, maybe with some compressed air or something, kind of clean out all the gunk that's left behind, all the cuttings. So that's that. We can disassemble the tool. We're going to use the same handle. We're going to use one of the handles, I should say, to face the bottom bracket next. So let's get that ready. So this is actually everything you're going to need. And the way we're going to put this together, we'll start with what we call the frame. That frame, as you can see, has a couple stubs at the end there that mate with the facing cutter. So that'll slip over like so. From there, we'll attach the handle. That side is now ready to use. First step in facing the frame is going to be installing our guides. Our guides provide a stable surface for the frame to run on, so we can ensure that the face that's cut with this cutter is perpendicular to the axis of the bottom bracket. That's the whole reason we're facing it, is to get two parallel sides that are both perpendicular to the bottom bracket axis. Once that's in, you know, it's going to be better if I just show you on the bike. So let's again reposition the camera and go back to the bike. As I said, those inserts just get threaded into the shell now that we've cut some clean threads. And if you look closely, let me actually back this one back out. They are labeled BSAR, and the other one is labeled BSAL. And again, just like the cutters, that has nothing to do with the side of the bike they go on, and everything to do with the handedness of the threads. So BSAR is the right-handed thread. It's actually bumping into each other here. And BSAL is the left-handed thread. The right-handed thread is on the left side of the bike, and the left-handed thread is on the right side of the bike. So we'll just get those installed. And they don't need to be in super deep, just enough to clear the face of the shell. So let me get that installed and we'll start facing. So the guides are installed. Now we'll install our cutter and the frame and the handle. And from here, the next step is our little reference face, the spring, thrust bearing, and lastly, nut. We'll thread that on until it compresses the spring. I don't see any reason to go more than about halfway. Basically, the intent of the spring is to keep a consistent pressure on the cutter and the shell, or between the cutter and the shell. Now that we've got the entire tool installed and ready to go, it's just a matter of cutting until we get that clean face. And unfortunately, there's no way to check for a clean face without actually removing the entire tool. Depending on the frame material, you can basically just watch for shavings coming from all the way around, and that will tell you that you're down to fresh metal. That's a lot easier of a method on aluminum frames because you'll see the shaving start to curl up and work its way around. On steel, you're not really going to ever get a consistent shaving that goes the entire circumference of the shell. So I just look for shavings starting to come up at various points around the shell. I'll check basically at 3, 6, 9, and 12. And if I see shavings coming up from all those points, I know that we're basically taking metal from all sections of the shell, and it's a safe bet that we've cleared the entire circumference. I know that this shell has already been faced, so we don't need to go any further. We'll just take the tool off and we'll repeat on the other side. And again, if you're actually trying to take off some heavy material, if you've got a shell that's really kind of out of whack, it's best to use some sort of cutting oil. In the past, I've even used just like a chain lube, and that's worked well enough. I'm not really trying to remove a lot of material here this time, so I'm not too worried about it. But again, process is the same for both sides. And once we're done and we're getting shavings from all the way around the shell, again, we take the tool out, and we take the guides out, and the facing process is done. So I'll take this out, and next we'll move on to the head tube. And here we have our head tube facer. Again, it just requires one of the handles from the entire setup. We have a frame, the same style of nut, thrust washer, and spring. We have a cone, which acts as a centering device. So when we're reaming the head tube bore, we know that the reamer is kind of centered as well. And then attached to that is a facer, and then another handle receiver right here. So So it all comes apart the same way. We just unthread that, and then I'll do that, and I'll meet you back at the head tube. All right, back at that tube. We're kind of zoomed a little bit further out than normal just because the head tube frame, the head tube reamer and facer frame is kind of long. I want to make sure we get it all in there at first. So again, we insert the assembled tool through the head tube. Next, we install the cone, the spring, the thrust bearing, and lastly the nut. And our objective is kind of the same as it was with the bottom bracket facer, in that we only want to put as much tension on that spring as necessary. I usually compress it about halfway. And from there, we're going to do basically two things in one. We're going to ream the head tube and face the head tube at the same time. So we're just going to give that a few turns, and we're going to look for shavings much in the same way we did with the bottom bracket when we were facing that. We just want to make sure we're getting clean shavings from the entire circumference of the head tube, which we are. Once we're done, as I take tension off the spring, I like to kind of just give it a little bit of a turn to kind of clean up any sort of tool marks that might get left behind. And we basically just repeat the process for the bottom. It's exactly the same process. Tool goes together exactly the same. And in the interest of saving your time, I'm not going to show you that, because if you've figured it out from the top, you'll figure it out from the bottom. And that's it. That is our new series of modular frame prep tools. Super compact. Let's take a closer look and we'll wrap this up. So yeah, as I said, the entire setup is super compact, which makes a lot of sense for your shop because honestly, these aren't tools you're going to be using every day. Well, they're probably not tools you're going to be using every day. So there's no sense in taking up a lot of your drawer space if you're using cabinets like ours, or your wall space if you're still going that method. There's no sense in taking up a lot of that space with tools that you're not going to use frequently. If you are using them frequently, by all means, you can get each set complete. Or if you want to just kind of build it over time and only want what's essential, you can do that as well. Keep it a little more compact. Take a closer look on our website, uniorusa.com, UNIORUSA.com. Slowly be adding the individual pieces. Right now, all of the complete assemblies are posted. And yeah, if you have any questions on it, feel free to email us, info@uniorusa.com. Or if you look at our website, there's a contact us function there as well. All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. This is a long video. See ya.